We don't talk about these things. This is how the world works. But something in you resisted. Something in you couldn't fake it, couldn't play along, couldn't put on the mask quite as easily as everyone else seemed to. At parties, you stood there awkward, unable to make small talk that felt empty. At family gatherings, you felt like you were watching a performance. Everyone had their lines, everyone knew their role, and you were supposed to play yours. But you couldn't quite do it. Or when you did, it felt exhausting, like wearing clothes that don't fit. The awakened soul has a very low tolerance for pretense. It sees the theater, and it can't unsee it. This doesn't make you better than others. It doesn't make you more moral. It just means you're operating at a different frequency. You're picking up on the reality beneath the surface, and once you see it, you can't go back to pretending you don't. This is the emperor's new clothes. Everyone agreeing to see something that isn't there, because agreement is easier than truth. But you were the child who couldn't agree. Not because you wanted to be difficult, but because your eyes worked differently. You saw what was actually there, and what was actually there was often quite different from what people said was there. As you grew older, you probably learned to navigate this better. You learned to play the game when necessary, to smile and nod, to keep your observations to yourself. But you never forgot. You never stopped seeing. And that seeing, that inability to be fully fooled by the surface story, that was a sign of your awakening. The fifth sign is that you felt homesick for a place you'd never been. This is perhaps the strangest sign, and yet many awakened souls will recognize it immediately. Did you ever feel as a child a kind of longing, not for something specific, not for a toy or a trip or a person, but for something you couldn't name? A feeling that you were far from home, even when you were sitting in your own house. A feeling that you belonged somewhere else, somewhere you couldn't quite remember or describe. Some children feel this as a sadness. Others feel it as a restlessness, a sense that this world, this life, this ordinary existence isn't quite right. Not wrong exactly, just not complete. Like you're waiting for something. Like you're supposed to be somewhere else, doing something else, being something else. You might have looked at the stars and felt it. You might have sat by water and felt it. You might have been in a crowd and suddenly felt it wash over you. This ache, this strange nostalgia for something you've never experienced, at least not in this life. The truth is, the awakened soul remembers. Not consciously, perhaps. Not in words or images. But somewhere deep down, it remembers that it is not merely this body, this name, this story. It remembers that it came from something bigger, something infinite, something that this ordinary life only hints at. And so there is always this faint homesickness, this longing to return to the source, to remember fully, to wake up completely. Other children don't feel this because they are not yet sensing the gap between what they are and what they appear to be. They take the world at face value. They accept that this is it, this is life, and they settle into it. But you couldn't settle. Not completely. Something in you remained unsettled, remained awake, remained aware that there is more. This is not depression, though it can be mistaken for it. This is spiritual memory, the soul remembering itself. And if you felt this as a child, that strange homesickness for nowhere in particular, that longing for something you couldn't name, then you were already waking up. You can accept that you were built differently. Not better, not worse, differently. And that difference is exactly what you're meant to bring to this world. The awakened soul isn't awakened because it's special. It's awakened because it couldn't help but wake up. It tried to sleep like everyone else, but something kept poking it, nudging it, whispering in its ear, and finally it opened its eyes and realized, oh, I've been awake this whole time. I just thought I was supposed to be asleep. If you were that child, the one who felt too much, asked too much, needed quiet too much, saw too much, longed too much, then you were already awake. Perhaps you didn't know what to call it. Perhaps you tried to ignore it, or suppress it, or make it go away. But it didn't go away, did it? Because it's not something you can get rid of. It's what you are. And now, looking back, you can see that those signs were not problems to be solved. They were invitations. Invitations to trust your own experience, to honor your own awareness, to stop pretending you're something you're not. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain, and so obvious, and so simple. Yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. But the awakened soul knows this already. Even as a child it knew. It didn't need to be taught. It just knew, somewhere deep down, that the point isn't to get somewhere else or become someone else. The point is to be here, to be awake, to be present to this strange and beautiful and terrible and miraculous fact of existence. So if these signs are yours, if you recognize yourself in these patterns, then welcome. Welcome to a life of being more awake than the culture around you generally prefers. Welcome to a life of seeing what others miss and feeling what others avoid. Welcome to a life of asking questions that don't have easy answers and finding comfort in silence when everyone else is shouting. You are not broken. You never were. You were just awake in a world that's mostly asleep. And the world needs you to stay awake, not to judge those who are sleeping, not to feel superior or separate, but simply to be what you are, to be the one who feels, who questions, who sits quietly, who sees clearly, who remembers home. That's what an awakened soul does. It doesn't try to wake anyone up by force. It just lives awake. And in doing so, it gives permission to others to wake up too, simply by being itself, simply by refusing to pretend, simply by staying open when everything else is closing down. You've been doing this since you were a child. You just didn't have the words for it. Now you do. Now you can look back and see that your strange childhood wasn't a mistake. It was the beginning of something. And that something is still unfolding, still growing, still waking up more and more with each passing day. So keep feeling, keep questioning, keep finding your quiet, keep seeing, keep longing for home. Because that longing is what keeps you awake. And your wakefulness is a gift to this sleeping world.